Hey, we're closing in on the end of August here, and normally after 35 years of teaching, I'd be preparing my classes for the fall, but I'm not doing that now. But I also, during this time, would have been meeting with a lot of students about the papers that they were writing, dissertations in law school, notes, what are law review articles that law students write. I'd be having a lot of one-on-one sessions with students, talking to them about how to write, how to pick a topic, and what are some of my tips about academic writing. So what I want to offer, since I'm not in my office right now at Columbia, are my 5 top tips on academic writing for students and others who are thinking about how to put together a proposal for this fall. A significant, good writing project. So the first thing, number 1, to think about is, why is this a good story to tell? Why is the topic that you picked one that is a story worth telling? So not just to you, but how can we make it interesting beyond you, to the reader? And in that sense, why should other people care about this topic? Who is your audience? Why that audience, and how do you craft both the question and then how you address it in the note, the article, the essay, the master's thesis, whatever, in a way that is interesting not just to you, but to a larger audience. And in that sense, the question really is, what's at stake? Why does it matter? And it doesn't matter to a niche group of people who are experts, or to a general audience. And you can write a great paper either way, but just be clear who your audience is. Secondly, number 2, into what conversation are you trying to intervene? It's not like you're coming up with something entirely new, but instead you're trying to make a meaningful intervention into an existing conversation with existing experts in that field. So who are your interlocutors? Who are the scholars, the theorists, the others who came before you that you're engaging in this paper? Who do you agree with, and who do you disagree with? And particularly, and I learned this from one of my writing mentors early in my career, Catherine Abrams, who's a law professor at Berkeley, is particularly when you're taking on someone, a prominent person in the field, as I was early in my career with Catherine McKinnon, give them their due. Do not set up a straw person who then you can easily attack. It doesn't make you look good. But if you give them the benefit of the wisdom of their work, and then say, and here's where I depart, in my view, on what this topic means or what's at stake here or how to analyze it, it just makes you look like a more sophisticated scholar than to set them up in some sort of straw man kind of way. In the end, you want to get attention both from those who agree with you and those who disagree with you, and I think that's a good way to do it. What kinds of recognizable disciplines are at stake in your work? This again is a question of what kind of conversation are you intervening in. You want to make sure that the people who are your audience, who are academics as well, recognize your sources, your methodology, the way you're arguing, as being recognizable to them in their field. And then lastly, on this point, what makes your idea original? It doesn't have to reconceive the field entirely, but you should be making some sort of intervention in this conversation that is yours, that is unique to you, and that is interesting to that audience. Third, what kind of structure brings your idea out in its best light in this work? So in this sense, there are a lot of different structures that are possible. You could start with a good, as Carol Rose, another mentor of mine, used to call it, a good for instance. Here's a thing that's happened in the world, saying why this story has something at stake that's worth talking about. Or you could do the opposite. Start at 30,000 feet. Say there is this issue where this problem has fallen apart, or the ways we've thought about it no longer work as well. Let me give you a for instance of how that's the case. So you want to, I think, both be on a theoretical level and on a practical or illustrative level in your writing at the same time. And the example can reinforce the theoretical intervention, or the theoretical intervention can help illuminate what's important about that example. Both good ways to do a paper, good ways to kind of chew on some problem that could make for a very good academic article. You could also say, here's where there's a paradigm that's run out. Its utility is no longer really as productive as it used to be. You could say there are new things that have happened in the world these days, a lot of them, that show that our paradigms are failed, or that illuminate weaknesses in those paradigms. That's great. Look, I found something that had been underappreciated, or not thought about clearly enough, or something comparative. Let me bring X and Y together to look at this problem, and the one in the light of the other. That is, X helps me see Y in a better light than I would have if I'd only looked at X alone. Okay, fourth tip on writing a good academic paper: what are the building blocks of good writing? Now, once you've got your structure, which I was just talking about, then the paragraph is really the building blocks. The paragraph is the basic element of how the paper moves. If you can move your paragraphs around and it doesn't really make any difference, then you don't have a strong enough through line in your paper yet. So think, at the end of each paragraph, what comes next? And the following paragraph flows in an important way from the one that came before. What are the energizing elements of this story? There may be the background things you have to say to kind of set it up, show your competence, and then give us something that kind of moves the story along. I call them spark plugs. There's also something I would call signposting. Periodically, you'll want to say to your reader, okay, here's where we are in the argument, right? I'm now moving into the next part of what I want to do in this paper. So that signposting helps people know where they are and where they're going. I would think carefully about what I tell and what I show, right? And this is, of course, comes from fiction writing as well, is you don't have to tell the reader everything. You can also show them at times and let them draw a conclusion. It makes for a more dynamic narrative about what the problem is. And then lastly, just on this point, what's necessary to your argument? You're going to have an awful lot of ideas. Some of them should, in the end, go into what I call the boneyard. They're the paragraphs, the pages, the little section that I just save and put into a boneyard for another day, another article. Some things you'll bury in a footnote and say, you know, here's an interesting thing. I'm actually not going to dog it down right here, but I want to note that I thought about it, and it's something to come back to later. Okay, last thing, number 5, don't go it alone. Writing is a very solitary, can be a very solitary process. You're in your office, your room, you're wherever, the library, writing, and you're doing that by yourself. But you need people around you. Have colleagues you trust, classmates, junior faculty, whoever, other grad students who you trust, who you can run ideas by, where the stakes are fairly low, and they know that they too were at that point in their writing. What do you think of this? Here, let me give you a few 5 pages of what I've written about. How does this sound? So definitely use your friends as early sounding boards, but then also have mentors, people who will commit to reading drafts, or just for you to come in and talk through what an idea is that you're working on, or how you might be stuck on something. The talking it through can be very helpful with somebody who's done or is an expert in the field. But in picking those advisors, make sure that you pick somebody who will respect the integrity of your project. I have seen this so many times where a good scholar goes to an advisor and they end up producing a mini-me. That is, they force you to write the paper they would have written had they taken this project up. They need to listen to your project, get inside your project, and support what you're writing, not what they would write. Listen to their feedback. If they misunderstood what you're up to, probably not their fault. It's important information for you to know that you weren't clear. about what it was that you were trying to do in that part of the paper or in the overall argument. Two last things. Don't panic if you get devastating feedback. That means they paid attention. That means they invested time in your paper. So take it on board and take it as constructive criticism, not that you're incapable of doing this project and ought to abandon it. And then last thing, create artificial deadlines. Promise people that you will get them something by date X, and create those deadlines over and over and over again to make it the case that you get the writing done. I have a longer version of these writing tips, which I will take screenshots of and post right after this video so that you have them. I'll also have a downloadable PDF version of it, which is 4 pages long. It's a lot more stuff. People in the past have found this useful. I hope you do too. Good luck with your writing.